Everything you've seen of Tokyo, the neon-drenched crossings, the vending machines on every corner, the sheer wall of people flowing through train stations, all of it is real, and none of it tells the actual story, because this city of 14 million people might be the quietest major metropolis you'll ever walk through. Entire neighbourhoods where the loudest sound is a wind chime, ancient forests growing in the centre of it all, and a forested ravine hidden between two ordinary buildings that most visitors never find. Tokyo sprawls across a plain at the head of a bay, and its size is part of the challenge, not for getting around because the train system is almost absurdly efficient, but for knowing where to begin. Most people land, see Shibuya and Shinjuku, and assume the whole city runs at that frequency. It doesn't. Tokyo is really a constellation of villages, each with its own rhythm, and the experience you have depends entirely on which villages you choose.
We're going to walk through 11 of them, starting exactly where you'd expect, and ending somewhere you wouldn't. The image everyone knows first, Shibuya Crossing, really does move a couple thousand people per signal change, and standing in the middle of it during the evening rush is genuinely thrilling. There's the coordinated choreography to it that somehow works without anyone colliding. Cross the intersection, look up, and you're surrounded by screens 3 stories tall. This is the Tokyo of the posters, and it delivers. For the wider view, Shibuya Sky, the observation deck on top of the Scramble Square building, gives you a panoramic sweep of the city stretching to the horizon in every direction. Entry runs about 2,000 yen, roughly $13, and the open-air rooftop level at sunset is worth timing your visit around. Book tickets online to skip the queue. Shibuya as a district has enough shopping and eating to fill an entire day, but you don't need a full day here. An hour or two gives you the energy of the place, and then you walk 5 minutes south and everything changes. Through a massive wooden torii gate, Shibuya's noise drops away within about 30 seconds. Meiji Jingu is a Shinto shrine set inside 70 hectares of forest, a forest that was planted by hand a century ago, using 100,000 trees donated from across Japan. Today it feels primeval. The gravel path crunches underfoot, the canopy blocks out the skyscrapers, and the air temperature drops a few degrees. The shrine itself is elegant in its simplicity, unpainted wood, clean lines, no gold leaf. You can write a wish on a wooden plaque called an emma and hang it alongside thousands of others. Entry is free. Early mornings before 9, you'll have the paths nearly to yourself, and you might catch a traditional wedding procession crossing the grounds, the bride in white, an escort of Shinto priests, the whole ceremony unfolding without a single amplified sound. This, 5 minutes from Shibuya Crossing, is the first sign that Tokyo operates on more than one frequency. The south exit of Meiji Jingu drops you directly into Harajuku, and the contrast is jarring in the best way. Takeshita Street is a narrow, candy-coloured corridor packed with crepe stands, costume shops, and teenagers in fashion that ranges from gothic Lolita to head-to-toe pastel. It's loud, a little absurd, and genuinely fun, especially with kids who tend to love the sheer visual chaos of it all. A crepe stuffed with strawberries and cream costs about 500 yen, roughly $3. Walk 1 block south and you're on Omotesando, which locals sometimes call Tokyo's Champs-Élysées, though that comparison undersells it. The boulevard is lined with flagship stores designed by leading architects, Tado Ando's concrete shell for Omotesando Hills, the crystalline angles of the Prada building, and the vine-covered lattice framing the Tokyo Plaza entrance. Even if shopping isn't the goal, this stretch is worth walking purely for the architecture. 2 streets, side by side, one chaotic, one composed, and together they say something true about Tokyo's comfort with contradiction. A 20-minute ride on the Yamanote Line, Tokyo's main loop that you'll come to know well, brings you to Napori Station. From there, it's a short walk into Yanaka, one of the few neighbourhoods that survived the bombings of the Second World War. The streets are narrow, the buildings low, and the pace drops to something closer to a village than a capital city. Yanaka is quietly famous for its cats. Real ones sleeping on walls and weaving through temple gates, ceramic ones populating shop windows. The Yanaka Ginza shopping street is a 10-minute strip of family-run stores, rice cracker sellers, chopstick carvers, a place that's been making wooden combs by hand for 5 generations. A freshly grilled senbei costs about 100 yen. At the top of the street, a wide staircase known as Yuyake Dandan Sunset Steps faces west, and on clear evenings the name earns itself completely. More than 70 temples sit within this small neighbourhood. You won't visit them all, but wandering past their mossy walls and wooden gates is the point. Yanaka doesn't try to impress you, it simply hasn't changed, and that's the impression it leaves. 15 minutes east by train, Asasaka brings you to Senso-ji, Tokyo's oldest temple, founded in the 7th century. The approach through Kaminari-man, the Thunder Gate, with its massive red paper lantern, funnels you into Nakamise-dori, a 200-metre shopping street that's been selling to pilgrims and visitors for generations. The ningyo-yaki, small cakes filled with red bean paste and pressed into the shape of the temple's lantern, come warm for a few hundred yen per bag. The temple complex itself is free to enter. The main hall is dramatic, incense smoke curling from a massive bronze burner, visitors wafting it over themselves for good luck. But the quieter corners around the 5-story pagoda and the adjacent Asakusa shrine are where the atmosphere really settles. Here's a timing note worth remembering. Visit in the evening, after the Nakamise shops have shuttered for the night, and the temple grounds transform completely. Lantern lit, nearly empty, the wooden structures glowing warm against the dark. Same place, entirely different experience. From Asakusa, the Ginza line runs south to Tsukiji in about 15 minutes. The famous tuna auctions moved to Toyosu back in 2018, but the outer market stayed put, and that's the part you actually want. 4 blocks of stalls selling some of the freshest seafood you'll find anywhere. Alongside kitchenware shops, Japanese knife specialists, pickle vendors, and tamiyaki stands where thick, sweet rolled omelette is cooked on a rectangular pan right in front of you. The market opens early and starts pinning by noon, so aim for mid-morning. Most stalls take cash only, budget around 2,000 to 3,000 yen for a proper grazing tour, a skewer of grilled scallops here, a cup of fresh uni there, a slice of dashimaki tamiyaki that lands differently when the egg itself is doing all the work. The aisles are narrow and busy, but it's an organised kind of busy, and you can eat your way through the whole market in about 90 minutes. 2 stops north on the Shibuya Line, Akihabara is where Tokyo's pop culture turns the volume up. Multi-story arcades where crane games fill entire floors, anime shops stacked to the ceiling, electronics outlets carrying gadgets you didn't know existed. For families, this is often the highlight of the trip. Kids lose themselves in the game centres. An entry is free. You pay per play, usually 100 or 200 yen. The quieter discovery is on the side streets. Step off the main Chuodori strip and you find tiny shops dealing in vintage game consoles, rare manga volumes, and model kits assembled with surgical precision. A handful of the original radio parts shops that gave the district its name, Akihabara Electric Town, still survive on upper floors, run by families who set up here in the 1950s. Neon and nostalgia occupying the same building. 20 minutes west on the Keio Inakashira line, Shimokitazawa feels like it belongs in a different city entirely. The streets are tight and car-free in stretches, the buildings stay small, and the local economy runs on second-hand clothing stores, vinyl record shops, independent coffee roasters, and small plate restaurants where the chef is also the waiter. This is Tokyo's theatre district in miniature, a cluster of tiny playhouses, some seating fewer than 50, staging everything from experimental drama to improv comedy. The language barrier is real here, but the neighbourhood's energy doesn't require translation. Saturday afternoons bring street musicians, pop-up market stalls, and a general drift of people who look like they have nowhere particular to be, which, in a city that runs on punctuality, reads as quietly radical. Lunch is excellent and affordable. A bowl of spicy vinyl-and-ramen near the station runs about 900 yen, $6. The The vintage shopping rewards patience, especially for Japanese denim or retro band tees from the 80s. So far, this has all felt like variations on a city tour. Busy markets, famous temples, neon and noise in shifting proportions. The next stop changes the frame entirely. From Shimokitazawa, a short ride on the Tokyu-Oimachi line brings you to Todoroki Station in a residential stretch of Setagaya Ward. Walk 3 minutes from the platform, turn down an unmarked staircase between two ordinary apartment buildings, and you descend into a forested ravine. Todoroki Valley runs for about 1 kilometre along a stream lined with bamboo, Japanese maples, and moss-covered stone. Wooden walkways follow the water beneath a canopy that closes overhead and blocks out the sky. The sounds of the street above, traffic, a train crossing, someone's television, fade to almost nothing, replaced by running water and birdsong. This is inside Tokyo, not on its outskirts, not in a purpose-built park. A geological valley carved by water over millennia that the city simply grew around and decided to leave alone. At the far end, Todoroki Fudosan Temple sits in a clearing beside a small waterfall trickling down exposed rock. The grounds are modest, a few stone lanterns, maple trees that turn extraordinary in November, but the effect of arriving here after the walk through the ravine stays with you longer than it should. You've been inside one of the world's largest cities this entire time. There are no entrance fees, no crowds, no tour buses. Most visitors to Tokyo never hear about Todoroki because it contradicts the story they packed in their suitcase. And that's the real lesson this city keeps teaching. The version of Tokyo that exists in the global imagination, vast, loud, relentless, is about 5% of what's actually here. A 15-minute walk south from the valley, or one quick stop on the train, Nakameguro sits along the Meguro River, more of a canal really, lined on both sides with cherry trees. In late March and early April, the blossoms form a ceiling over the water and the whole neighbourhood comes alive. The rest of the year, it's simply a beautiful place to drift through. Independent boutiques, small galleries, and coffee shops that take their craft seriously. Onibus Coffee and Streamer Coffee Company both pour excellent cups for around 500 yen. There's a Saturday farmers market in season. The Starbucks Reserve Roastery here, designed by Kengo Kuma, is worth stepping into for the 4-story copper interior, even if you'd rather support the independents. An afternoon along the canal with good coffee and nowhere to be feels like the entire city taking a breath. As evening settles in, the trains make quick work of the ride to Shinjuku, home to Tokyo's busiest station, which processes 3.5 million passengers on an average day. But the station isn't the destination. Walk past the bright lights of Kabukicho, the main entertainment district, and duck into Golden Gai, a grid of 6 narrow alleys containing nearly 300 bars, most seating fewer than 10 people. Some charge a small cover of a few hundred yen. Some cater to specific crowds, jazz fans, film buffs, photographers, people who just want to talk to a stranger. The walls are layered with decades of stickers and posters. The ceilings barely clear your head, and the bartender is almost always the owner, pouring whiskey and steering conversation in a space no bigger than a walk-in closet. A glass costs roughly what it would back home, and here, at the end of the day, the whole trip snaps into focus. You started at Shibuya Crossing, staring out at a city that looked overwhelming and almost incomprehensibly vast. You end in a bar that seats 6, sharing a quiet drink by candlelight, the bartender remembering your name from 2 hours ago. Tokyo's reputation is built on scale. The biggest city, the busiest trains, the brightest lights. Its reality, time after time, is intimacy. The guidebooks have the facts right about Tokyo. The neon is real. The trains arrive to the second. The scramble crossings will quicken your pulse. But that's the dust jacket, not the book. Walk 5 minutes in any direction and you find a shrine gate, a quiet garden, a valley with a stream running through it. 14 million people, and the city still makes room for silence. That's not a contradiction. That's just Tokyo. If this helped you plan your trip or just made you want to book one, a like goes a long way. Subscribe if you want more travel guides like this, and I'll see you in the next one.